Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for hosting this. It's been several weeks since we had a live on the A6 campaign. We haven't had one, in fact, since we reached the 100,000 goal on the petition. We had a 100,000 goal for the petition. Alhamdulillah, we reached 100,000. Doesn't mean that we don't still want you to sign it. We still want anyone who's here now listening to me and listening to the sisters to go to thechange.org and sign the petition. But further than that, now we're moving to the next phase of this campaign. The campaign was never just about the petition. The petition was just a way of launching the campaign so that we could, as has been already discussed, so that we could get a gauge of public support, popular support, grassroots support, global, international support for the movement to have the United States held accountable for its many, many crimes and have it held accountable by being expelled from the United Nations so that we could liberate the United Nations from American domination. Now, the next phase of that is for us to move to the political and diplomatic arena to try to recruit member states and have them actually raise this issue at the United Nations, at the General Assembly, and at the Security Council. That requires more from you than signing a petition. What that's going to require is we have the petition that shows us a measure, in black and white, a measure of popular support for the expulsion of America from the United Nations. Now we need the real grassroots on the street level support to show that this is in fact an undeniable demand by the global population. That means that when you go out to protest the genocide in Gaza, when you go out to protest for a ceasefire, when you go out to protest for the rights of the people of Gaza, for the people of Palestine, for the people of Syria, for the people of Yemen, for the people of Lebanon, and for the people of Congo, and for people all around the world who are victimized by American policy, by American foreign policy, and by America's impunity that they secured by their domination of the United Nations. When you go out to protest, when you go out to march, when you go out to a rally or any sort of an event like that, you need to raise the call for the invocation of Article 6 and actually have America held accountable, because too often protest movements and people and activists have been fooled into thinking that the best they can ever do is symbolic protest. The best they can ever do is symbolic activism. The best that they can ever do is express themselves, express their anger, express their outrage over American crimes, Israeli crimes, and that's the most that they can do. That's the pinnacle of what they can achieve. But no, that's not the case. There are actual mechanisms that exist for real world accountability. And that's what we're advocating. And this is what activists need to move towards. Don't just say free Palestine from the river to the sea. Don't just say end the genocide. Don't just say freedom for the Palestinians or what have you. Don't just say an end to war. We want peace or any of these types of things. Say we want accountability for the perpetrators of these crimes. We want accountability. We want them to be held accountable at the United Nations. We want to have them expelled from the United Nations so that they don't have the power to dominate that organization, the organization that is charged with the enforcement of international law, which when they dominate that, that's how they have secured their impunity for the last 8 decades. That's why the world has seen so much war, so much violence, so much bloodshed at the hands of the United States government, the United States military. It's because of their impunity. And so we have now before us a mechanism by which we can tear that impunity from their hands and actually hold them accountable. And that's the only way that we can solve any of the problems that we're concerned about. That's the only way that we can have the peace that we want. That's the only way that you can stop the genocide. That's the only way that you can stop Zionism and Israeli occupation and Israeli war crimes in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Lebanon, in Syria, in Yemen, in Iraq. That's the only way you can do it. The only way you can do it is actually by holding them legally accountable and imposing consequences on them for their actions. No individual person and no country, no nation, no government, no power structure is ever going to change its behavior until it faces consequences for its actions. And that's exactly why America has been able to do what they've been able to do for 80 years, because they have been able to immunize themselves against consequences by controlling the United Nations, by dominating the United Nations. So we need to get them out of the United Nations so that the United Nations has the freedom and the authority and the sovereignty to do their job, to do what they were created to do on paper. On paper, what they were created to do, which is to enforce international law. And America has, as a matter of policy, America violates international law on a daily basis. They violate it abroad and they violate it domestically. They violate it inside the United States and outside the United States. And the only way that that situation can ever change is if they're held accountable. So that's what I wanted to say. We need it now. We need your help now to do more than just sign the petition, although that's a starting point. Go and sign the petition. But if you are an activist, if you are connected to any activist organizations, if you participate in any rallies, if you participate in any marches or protests or what have you, then we're asking you to raise the banner of the invocation of Article 6, the expulsion of America from the United Nations, so that that organization can finally hold them accountable and we can actually see some real change by implementing real mechanisms for change, rather than just symbolic, rather than just expressing our outrage, rather than just expressing ourselves and shouting in the streets. We're talking about getting into the halls of power and activating the mechanisms that do exist and actually getting accountability enforced against the number one criminal on the face of this earth. Sure. First, I wanted to mention something about the veto and the discussion about the veto power, because everyone naturally feels that the veto power, even among the 5 Security Council members, is unfair. And I agree with that. But this is not the time for that discussion. This would be like saying, like when we say, expel the U.S. from the UN, hold them accountable for their crimes, and then the answer to that is, well, the problem is the veto power. We really should talk about reforming the veto power or removing the veto power and so on. Okay, like I say, that is a valid discussion, but it's not the time for that discussion. That would be like if you have a mass shooter who's committing mass murder, and you know who it is and you know what he's doing, and then you say that the answer to that problem is to discuss gun control. Let's talk about gun control. Let's not talk about arresting and prosecuting and convicting and jailing and punishing the mass shooter. You understand? Yes, the veto discussion is an important discussion, and it's a discussion that needs to be had, but now is not the time for that. Now is the time for accountability for the crimes being committed by the United States and the crimes that they have committed for 8 decades. Because if you'd want to talk about the veto power, okay, let's just remove the veto power and let the United States stay where it is. Well, where's the accountability for their crimes? What about all their victims? What about their victims worldwide? What about their victims even in their own country? Where's the justice for that? This campaign is about justice. It's about accountability. We can talk about reforming the UN after you get the obstacle removed from reforming the UN out of the UN, and that's the United States. There's no way that you can reform the United Nations and make it a more effective, a more just institution, as long as you have this corrupting force dominating that institution. And it's just like what you were saying about the funding. People say that America is the biggest funder of the United Nations. No, it's the biggest briber of the United Nations. It's the biggest extorter of the United Nations. It's the biggest corrupter of the United Nations. And one of the ways that they do that is through their funding. The best thing that could happen to the United Nations is if they lost that American so-called funding, if they lost that American bribery, if they lost that American hush money that buys them impunity to commit crimes all around the world. That's the best thing that could happen to the United Nations. And if they did it, well, they'd end up having more money in their budget than they do today. And I'll tell you how. because exactly like Sister Nisa said, America buys the impunity through its funding so that they can pump money into their military industrial complex, which has been the engine of their economy for decades. They buy that impunity so that they can commit crimes, so that they can spread war and chaos and violence and carnage all around the world with impunity, never being held accountable for the crimes that they're committing. You understand? They do that for money, and they pay the United Nations off so that they can do that for money, so that the United Nations will look the other way, so that they can overrule anyone who tries to complain about the crimes that they're committing. That's why they do it. So you have to get rid of that corrupting force from the United Nations so that it can operate correctly and effectively and in a just manner. There's no other way to do it. And once you have done that, yes, you can do whatever is necessary to reform the organization, to either add more people to the Security Council or remove the veto power, let it actually be a democratically run institution where you have actually decisions being made according to real global consensus, without any country having the ability to overrule the global consensus, which is the only thing that America has ever used its veto power to do, which is to overrule the global consensus. I mean, we were talking earlier about the difference between the other Security Council members and their use of their veto power versus America's use of their veto power. And the main difference is, aside from what the sisters already said, if you want to summarize the main difference is that no other country has ever used their veto power to overrule the global consensus. But that's what America has always done. Other countries have used their veto power to overrule American policy, whereas America has only ever used their veto power to overrule the global consensus, to overrule what the entire global community believes should happen, what policy should be. This is how America has used their veto power, and that's how they'll continue to use their veto power. So the veto power in and of itself, yes, I agree, is unfair in principle. But the only one who has abused it the way that America has is America. No one has done what they've done. Everyone else would be ashamed to put in a veto against a motion at the United Nations, a resolution at the United Nations that everyone in the world agrees should be passed. Any other country, even the UK and even France, would be ashamed to veto such a resolution. And you know, with regards to people's feeling of futility of what we're doing, of futility of this campaign, the idea that nothing can be done, that America is too powerful and too strong, and what have you. You'll remember, sisters, and anyone who's listened to us in the past doing these lives, we used to get questions or comments from people saying, well, even if you get this to the Security Council, because it has to be approved by the Security Council, people used to say, if you get it to the Security Council, well, France and the UK, who are on the Security Council, they will automatically veto it. And what did I say back in those days? Just watch. America is going to estrange the UK and France. This friendship that they used to have isn't going to last much longer. And look at it now. Look at it now. They've already said there is no collective West anymore. There is no US and Europe anymore. There's just the US. Trump has said that, America has said that, and now the UK is saying it, and Europe is saying it, and France is saying it. They all know that they're on their own. They've alienated their so-called allies. They've showed their allies that they're ready to throw them under the bus. So those allies are not as reliable as you thought they were, because those allies have understood that America is not as reliable as they thought it was. So I don't think if you held the vote today, I don't think that you could count on France to veto it, and I don't think you could count on the UK to veto it. They all know which way the wind is blowing, and it's not blowing west, it's blowing south. They know that they need to align themselves with the global south. They need to align themselves with BRICS. They need to align themselves with China, and they're not going to be on the side of America anymore, because America has shown very clearly that they're not on their side. So we're actually, this movement is actually moving in the direction of global momentum. This movement, this campaign is moving in the direction of global momentum. And you can see that very clearly. America is alienating everyone. They're alienating their closest so-called allies. They're alienating France, they're alienating the UK, and the only other people, the only other countries on the Security Council are Russia and China. Well, we already know which way they'll vote. And at this point, like I say, I think that we can pretty much count on either an abstention or a positive vote from the UK and from France because of America's actions. So no, there's nothing impossible about this at all. There's nothing even particularly difficult about this at all. The only thing that we need to do is show to member states that there is global demand for this, that there is global support for the invocation of Article 6. And I'm telling you, we need to do this as quickly as possible because America would like to see the United Nations dismantled. Trump would like to see the United Nations dismantled. They would like to see that organization fall apart, and they've been doing everything they can to try to make it as ineffective and as incompetent and as dysfunctional as they can. I can't bore you with all of the details, but they've done many things internally under American direction. They've done many things internally at the United Nations to make it ineffective, to make it incompetent, to make it dysfunctional, such as changing the way that the budget is allocated. It used to be that the United Nations would do whatever it is that they're supposed to do, and then the budget would be allocated to cover all of that. Now, the budget is allocated at the beginning of the year, and they have to make their budget in terms of their actions and their programs according to whatever money has been allocated. And that means that not even their full budget has been allocated at the beginning of the year because not every member state pays at the same time. So they have to make their plan for the year based on an insufficient budget, an insufficient amount of money. And this is a budgetary change, a policy change, an internal policy change that was dictated by the United States, precisely so that they could undermine the United Nations. They would like to see that organization fall apart. So anyone who thinks that the UN should be dismantled, well, you're on the side of America. You're on their side. That's the position that they take. They would very much like to see the United Nations dissolved, especially under this president that they have now. They would very much like to see the United Nations dissolved. And what we want to see, what BRICS wants to see, what the Global South wants to see, and what the victims of America want to see is the United Nations retaken, liberated, retaken control of by the global consensus, by all of the other nations in the world, by the other 150 something members. That they want to take back control of that organization, of that institution, or I shouldn't say take back control, but gain control of it and make it actually functional so that it can be actually an institution of international justice. So it can actually be an institution that can hold America accountable, which is exactly why America would like to see it dissolved, because they know that they're losing their leverage over the international community. And when I say international community, I mean the actual international community, not just America and Western Europe and Australia. I'm talking about the actual global community, the other 153 members of the United Nations. They know that they're losing their leverage over all of the other countries in the world. And they know that there is a potential of the United Nations falling into the hands of the rest of the population and out of the hands of America. And if that happens, then they know that they can be held accountable. They know that they will face justice for their 8 decades of crimes. So they're trying to undermine the United Nations to the point where it will be dissolved before that can happen. So we need to work quickly. We need to take charge of the United Nations. We need to strengthen the United Nations and put it in the hands of the global community so that then the global community can have global community justice for the greatest criminal that this world has ever seen. You know, I just saw a comment. Excuse me for just interjecting. I just saw a comment. It's just one word. They just said utopia. I'm not sure what they mean exactly by that, but I'm assuming that they're being sarcastic and saying that the idea of holding America accountable is a utopia. the idea of actually being able to succeed in expelling America from the United Nations and having the United Nations be under the control of the actual international community, that's a utopian vision. Well, that's just because you have gotten used to 8 decades of dystopia. We're not talking about a utopia. We're talking about a very realistic, pragmatic step that can be taken in real life that can make the world not a utopia, but just normal. That can just make the world normal, because we haven't had a normal world in at least 8 decades. Of course, it's been longer than that, but we're just talking now within the context of the lifetime of the United Nations. Since the establishment of the United Nations, we have not lived in a normal world. We've lived in a world in which America has been a global superpower, not because it deserved it, not because it earned it, not on the basis of merit, not even on the basis of defeating other world powers. Every other global power that existed died. It wasn't killed. They just got tired. They fell apart. They weren't defeated. America became a global superpower by default, not by victory. They became a global superpower by default. And then they were very conniving and very tactful in their domination of the UN, giving them this impunity. They haven't been able to do what they've done around the world because of their power, neither their economic power, nor their military power, nor their diplomatic or political power, not even their cultural power, which is significant. I would say that their cultural power has been more significant even than their military power. But they haven't been able to do the crimes, they haven't been able to commit the crimes that they have on the basis of their power. They've been able to commit their crimes on the basis of their impunity. And they were very clever to secure that impunity for themselves through their domination of the United Nations. And as I say, we're moving in a direction that is seeing their ability to do that, their ability to maintain that, their ability to hold on to that is falling apart. So we're moving in a direction that is going to bring the world, inshallah, bi'ithnillah, into a state of actual normalcy. That's not utopian. If you think that's utopian, it's because you've gotten too used to dystopia.